got the wrong idea. Don't waste your customers' times. You know what it is that they're after. You know what it is that you can provide for them. Make sure that you get them from where they are to where they need to be smoothly, if not necessarily quickly. Keep things simple. Keeping things simple is important generally, and this can apply in any number of ways. I mean that in terms of layout, in terms of coming to a page and seeing and knowing exactly what it's about. But I also mean it in terms of language, very, very, very specifically. The average reading age in the UK is, I think, under 11. That's alarming. Also a good reason why we have tutors. But it talks to the level of language and comprehension that our audience will have. Now, your audience may be university graduates with children who are looking to push their parents, in which case you can afford to be perhaps more adventurous with some of your words and your text. However, remember also that a lot of people don't actually read websites. They might be flicking on your website, thinking about the user journey as a support. They might be waiting for the train, flicking through it on a mobile phone. Having a reading age of 11 is not dumbing down your text. It's making it easy for people who don't have time or in that moment, the concentration to deal with something. If you have something that needs more time and more weighty, fine, of course, that needs to be done. Terms and conditions, for example, all of that kind of stuff has a role to play. But your attracting content should be simplified. And as I say, aiming for those the reading scale scores as low as you possibly can. And you can do this. So for those of you who have WordPress, and based on the examples that were sent through the chat, that does work out to be around about 3/4 of us. I know that there are plugins like Yoast that will let you give reading age and readability and all of those other kinds of things. If you're a Wix person or you're handcrafting in Notepad, you can use Word. Under Options, Tools, Readability, and it's there, and it'll tell you what it is. One of the key things you can do are nice short sentences. So things with clauses, ablative absolutes, and all of this other kind of thing, passive voices, confuses people. So trim it down, and it's a really good discipline to get into. Consistency, absolutely consistency of where things are positioned on a page, but also how your users should expect to interact with it. So don't do anything that the user wouldn't expect to happen. If, for example, all of your confirm actions, like submit this form, yes, I want to download this document, if they're all green, make them always green. If the button for go is big, keep it always go. In the trade, you used to call it dark UX. Dark user experience is when you try to trick the user into thinking that they're performing an action that they're not. So again, because we don't read. So if the button that was cancel suddenly becomes green and you've fooled your customer in doing it, that's not nice. It's not the right thing to do. And we want to be ethical. So make sure that the customers know what they're doing and that the shortcuts that you put in are there forever across your entire site. That also applies to things like fonts, font sizes, font styles, imagery where possible. Keep things nice and simple. Communication hierarchy. In the olden days, before the web, we used to talk about stuff being above the fold. And that's still very much true today, even though you don't fold stuff. And this idea was simply that when you got some direct mail, something in the post, whatever it was that you held before you unraveled the document, that was above the fold. In web terms, we're really just talking about that first user screen. Now, as a user population, since the advent of the roller mouse, we've not had to worry about things being contained in one screen, but your important stuff should be at the top and get less important as you go down. And think about that not in terms of just what it is that you want to say, you want to sell. So your shop might feel like the most important thing to be at the top, but actually for your users, what's most important? Most important to bring them along on a particular journey. We used to talk about ADA, at least I fairly sure someone talked to me about ADA once. And ADA is a nice simple acronym to remember about how things should work in your journeys. So IDA, ADA. A is for attract or attention. So something that grabs, something that catches the eye. Oh yeah, that seems like it's for me, whether it's a bold headline, startling image, something like that. Interest, something that then draws them in. So I've gone from a passing casual, I wonder what that is. Now I'm interested in what it is that you've got to say. Desire, clicking through that button, and then A for action, keeping things simple. So in terms of your journeys, as you're considering what it is that you want to talk about and what it is that your customers want to hear, it's a nice, easy fallback to think about ADA: attention, interest, desire, action. Other important things. SEO is a false idol. Many of you might have been told, "Oh, write this content because it'll look good for SEO. You need to say it this way because it's good for SEO," and SEO being search engine optimization, which is the idea that you can that you'll get higher and higher up the rankings in Google. This is important if your site is for acquisition, and it's important if people won't find out about you in any other way. So if I go to Google and I search for humanities tutor, Christopher would want us to find Dr. Humanities early on. It's unlikely that Christopher's website will appear high up early on because Christopher is not spending lots of money on PPC, which is where you pay for the advert in Google. He's also competing against websites that have been established for ages and ages and ages, who will be touting humanities, tutoring, and history, and all of these other kinds of things. So actually, SEO for Christopher may not be such a hot topic. Because Christopher's going to be looking at how he can attract his customers in other ways, as all of us are. We're looking at Facebook, we're looking at word of mouth, we're looking at all these other kinds of things. So writing content because you think it's going to make Google happy is a nonsense. Don't do it. Having said that, there are some really simple SEO practices that you should follow to optimize the way that Google will rank you. Remembering Google has one really, really simple purpose, and that is to deliver the website to the customer. That's it. That's all they want. Bless you. That's all they want is if I search for amazing planning resources for GCSEs, Google wants to give them the study buddy, and I want to make sure that they get it. So I shouldn't be worrying about tricking Google into thinking that I'm the right website. I should be focusing on doing what I do best, which is talking to the customer about why it's the best, because Google is going to read that as if it were a customer. Other hygiene factors do exist, though. Well-structured content, and I mean structured in an HTML nerdy kind of way. You've got good H1 tags that describe what's being said. And I'm doing this because if someone searches for the study buddy, I want my website to feature well. So I'm being quite clear about what it is that I want to do. But I'm not trying to fool Google. I'm focusing on the customer because that's what Google would want me to do. And I won't fall foul of content down the line. So my
Sorry, Nathan, what's a H1 tag?
Oh, sorry, H1 tag is a heading tag. So it's in the way that content is structured. In all reality, you probably won't need to know it. And Emma, I'm afraid I don't know what your website is. So I can have a look and see how it's been built. But I'm at a guess, I'd say Wix or WordPress.
Wix.
Wix. You'll have a template. The template will do that for you. So you just need to make sure that it's there. H1 is the top heading. It's the most important thing. H1 is the H tag. So you get H1, which is the most important thing on your page. There should be only one. Highlander reference. Life is long enough. Too many of those. H1 heading reference. One of those on the page, and then you get H2s, your subheadings. It's going to be no surprise that you're going to get H3s, which are sort of less important than that. 4s, 5s, and I'm not exaggerating, even 6s. The way in which you structure them is important, as I say, because it determines a hierarchy of content, but it's also really important from an accessibility point of view, which is to say, if you have partially sighted or blind users who are using screen readers, then this is what's going to be delivered to them. So Google knows what to talk about.
Brilliant. Thank you.
No problem. So my note of caution, and you heard it here first, kids, is if there are people out there using AI, ChatGPT, Bard as it was, or others to create content because they can write blogs at quite literally the press of a button, I would advise against it. I don't know for definite, but I can see that if Google knows that you've been writing something with an AI bot to create content, it's not authentic. Google wants it to be authentic. Remember, of course, because that's what it's delivering to its customers. It will punish you for it. I know that it can punish you for it because I was working as part of the Lloyds Banking Group at the time when Halifax dropped off of every search engine because Google punished it for backlinks. Backlinks were where content looks important if lots of people are linking to you. Organizations and SEO gurus, if I could bring myself to do inverted commas, I would. These gurus would say, what you need is backlinks. Let me buy some for you. And then Google would say, no. If your website's being linked from lots of places that don't actually exist or have good quality traffic, I'm going to punish you. And that's what it did. So stop worrying about Google. Start thinking about your customers. Wow, that felt like a soapbox moment. That was literally 30 seconds worth of work there. I thought that I covered in about 6-7 minutes. Evangelical about the whole thing. The last principle is to constantly represent your brand. Always think about what it is that you're trying to say and why and how, because this is important. Your users, your customers, your visitors might not be reading your words, but they're absolutely taking in a sense of what it is that you are and what you do. So that feels like a break for the first section of the website. Alarmingly, that could be the first of 4 sections. And I say alarmingly because I've already taken up 35 minutes of your time. But at this point, just want to see if there are any questions that have come up. Christopher's agreeing that his website is way down the list. But it's not a bad thing at the moment, Christopher. Okay, I'm going to move on. Hurtling through. What I want to talk to you about is something that, and you can tell, I think, depending on how big or small I am on your screen, I'm excited about, and that is foray method. And I'm excited because I came up with it, and I don't often come up with these kinds of things that I feel like I could share. And also excited because I found a way of working a ninja into something that I did, and there's not enough opportunities in life to bring in ninjas. So the foray method. User experience in the way that I know and love it is teams of people, lots and lots of money, agencies are plenty, decision-making trees, stakeholders, and typically inaction. What we'd do is we'd rebuild a website and it would take months. There'd be lots of people involved. It'd cost alarming amounts of money, and that would be the way it goes. The thing is, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for big companies. It certainly doesn't work for little companies. We haven't got that time and energy. So the idea was to come up with something that was much more tactical, that focused on some core elements and something that's reusable. Now, I've repurposed this for us. It was something that I'd worked on in a large corporate and delivered. So you'll forgive me, and please, if it doesn't fit exactly, but the idea is still spot on. So the reason for this is that actually sometimes we can get a bit close to our own websites or projects and everything can feel a bit overwhelming. I'm aware now that actually this slide is from an old version of me. I'm going to go nerdy, Nathan 1.1. When I used to put lots of words on slides as opposed to nowadays. So you weren't intended necessarily to read this. Happy to provide the slides afterwards if you wanted to. So the point was that actually we can become a bit overwhelmed if we think that our website's not right. Where do we start? What do I need to do? How do I begin? Oh, I don't know. And it's going to cost me hundreds of pounds, bags of Smarties, whatever it might be. In order to get it done, I've got other things that I need to focus on. I'll do it later if something feels big. Actually, if it feels big. So the foray method was all about reducing all of that. Let's not worry about everything. Let's start to think about things that we can control and what we can do with just enough content, just enough information to make a demonstrable change. And so the foray came about, and the foray is because the dictionaries tell us that a foray is a sudden incursion into a place that you're not normally allowed to be, typically with the idea of extracting something. And it seemed like the kind of thing I was trying to do. I wanted to nip in, change something quickly on a website, extract some value and then move out. And foray also because I'm a middle-aged man without enough hobbies, and the fact that actually I can reduce this to 4 A's pleased me even more than the idea that I could work a ninja into a PowerPoint presentation. So my 4 A's, and our 4 A's, I hope, are that we're going to look at our audience. We're going to define an audience and work with them. So we're coming up with one particular problem. We're then going to assess what one issue are we going to tackle? What's the analysis? And then how do we appraise that? I'm going to talk you through the theory, and then I'm going to run you through by looking in a small way at Helen's website, who's still there. And I keep feeling like I should apologize, but I also feel like I'm making that sound much worse than it's now going to be. So our first A, the audience. Oh, we should also say that this is deliberately almost, but an acceptance that it's flawed. We're not changing everything. I'm not talking about this is how you rebuild your website. That's a different skill set. That's a different approach, even if it's built on the same fundamentals. But we're talking about incremental changes over time. And it's going to be the kind of thing where you will come up with a series of ideas, and some of them you'll dismiss because they're going to cost too much money or take up too much resources. And some of you think, actually, I can do that really quickly by doing this. What it helps you to do is to come outside of yourself and think about this from another perspective. And of course, the person's perspective that we want to find out is about our audience. So when I did this, when I ran this for a company, it did this over an hour. Bearing in mind, these FTSE 100 types don't do anything in an hour. It takes you more than an hour to book a meeting room. To do something that could actually come up with change in an hour felt like I was some kind of lunatic describing fire for the first time. But it worked, and it can happen. So 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, you can come up with a pen portrait of an audience that you're talking to. Not all of your audiences. Some of you will have more than one audience. You might have a student audience as well as a parent audience. You might have a journalist news audience as well as a customer audience. All of those things are fine. Focus for now in this 1 hour session on who one audience are going to do. When you're talking about an audience, and I don't know if any of you have created personas before. Have we anyone with persona work in the history? No. And why on earth would you have needed to? Oh, some of you may have done. So a persona is a representation of an audience. In the past, what we tend to do is be very detailed. We'd have lots of them for lots of different segments. I would suggest you keep it really, really simple because you're unlikely to keep reusing them. So when we're doing this, we want a backstory and a name because this has to be personal. I want you to only think in terms of your persona when you're reviewing your website, constantly talking about their name to make it clear this is their perspective. It's not your perspective, their perspective. Want to look at some of the stuff that make them feel real, and then focusing on success because success is what it's all going to be about. And this is going to be credible personas. Okay, feel a little superficial, but it's credible. It's just enough, and that's what we're aiming for. So this is what my persona typically might look like. More ninjas. I feel like I've become a little obsessed. Draw a picture. It feels really twee, but why not? Let's do it. Crack out the crayons and just a highlight of what someone might look like. Their name, their likes and dislikes, a bit of a backstory, a description of them, and then a statement. I'm gonna go through this quickly because I've actually created some by way of an example we can walk through. Nice and simple. You can do this. You can be imaginative. Let yourself run wild with it. So that was our first A, audience. Second A of our 4 A's, assessment. What's the one thing you need to solve at this point that your audience has to solve? What's their issue? What's the problem that they're solving? What's the opportunity that they're looking for? What are the barriers that they might have found up until now? All we're doing in this 5 minutes is framing what it is you're going to look at. Because of course, if the problem that you've got is my persona hates the website, you're going to be there forever. We want one specific issue that you're going to focus on. So 5 minutes. It only took us 15 minutes to come up with our pen portrait of our audience, and now we're going to have 5 minutes for the assessment. Once we've done that, the bulk of it is you're going to walk your persona through the website journeys that you've created. And you're going to note down how they've got on at each step of the way. The journey you remember at its most basic could be Ada. How was their attention attracted? Did I get their interest? Where did we note desire? And what was the action like? So follow that journey if you like. You could be much more specific about something that you want to challenge yourself over. The booking process, the download of a guide, any of these kinds of things that you could be looking at, and you're going to talk your persona, talk them through it. You're going to look for the negative and the positives as well. We tend to gravitate on the negatives, but some of the stuff you've got is good, even if it might need polishing or amplifying in one way or another. That might then look like this, a really basic but credible user experience customer journey map. So we've got a key step, discovery. I came to your website because, and you can start this journey offline if you like. It could, or off your website. My persona was trawling through Facebook and found this. They were moaning to a friend in the playground about something, and they pointed me to wherever your journey starts. Get all of that. What was the point of that whole step? What notes have you taken of taking your persona through, their overall feeling, and the key learnings that you might take away from it? And we do that for the various steps. I've only got 3 listed here. Knock yourself out for how many steps there are. If you find your journey starts to have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps before they get to fulfill the action that they wanted, I would suggest your journey is a bit convoluted, and you could probably look to condense that. That might be a learning in and of itself. So we found our audience. We gave them a problem that we needed to assess. We've then analysed the journey through the website. And now we're going to appraise it. By looking back over how our persona did, we as business owner, website owner, product manager, can look at it and think about, okay, what do I need to do to change this? Now, in doing this, you're going to come up with a series of things that could be really big. They shouldn't be throw the website out and start again. If that was the issue, then either you've got a really big endemic problem, or your assessment was perhaps too broad to start off with, I would hope. Some of the things are going to be really quick wins. They're going to be important to you, important to your persona, low cost. Fantastic, get it done. You can pop these into a matrix and knock them off. Some of them might be bigger, some of them might need a bit more investigation. But the idea is just capture all of the things. And we're moving away from, I don't think my website is working, and we're moving towards, these are some of the things that I can do to solve that problem. And again, it might look a bit like this. You can come up with a decision matrix in other ways. You could come up with a score for risk and impact. Always, I think a good discipline is to have what is the risk of doing nothing? If I didn't change that, what would it matter? Because your resources are limited, resources in time, energy, money. So focus on the things that are going to yield the biggest benefit. And then once you've done that, have a look back and wrap up and think about all of the user stories that could be actionable, thinking again about your persona, and use that to come up with a plan, because it would be completely remiss of the planning expert in the room not to say that we all love a good plan. And so that is, this is the beginnings of that. You've got something actionable. Remembering, of course, that we looked at the key principles and all of those kinds of bits and pieces that were essential to what it is that we were using our website for. We need that in order to make sure that our website is being used properly, because if we don't know why it's there, actually it doesn't make any odds what kind of stuff it's actually doing. So I'm really conscious that I've got about 12 minutes, and I reckon something like 45 minutes worth of content left. For those who are diehard, I'm happy to stay on and chat through some of the live examples. But what I'm going to do now, while I'm keeping up what feels like a breakneck pace, but that could just be because I am still struggling through severity level 2 manfully, which I'm keeping at bay with lockets and self-pity, but it might also just be coming across in this rant. So, Helen, I'm going to talk about your website. I'm trying to see if I can find your picture to make sure that you're not too upset. So you were the first person who came up with the website to be listed. And so with your kind permission now, although actually it will change the shape of the rest of the presentation if you say no, I would really like to run through some of the key aspects of your website. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to start off with, Helen isn't a plant. We've not met before. I feel like a tabletop magician. But I can tell from Helen's website that Helen is immensely experienced with PhD and all these other bits and pieces that I could glean from the website, has a fantastic career behind her to call on. All of these kinds of things I know, and I know that, Helen, because I've read your website in detail. What I would suggest, though, is what's going to come clear as I critique aspects of it, is that I don't think a lot of other people will be getting that straight away. So I don't think your website is working as hard as it can for you. I would also suggest, without wanting to sound down and round, like that a family member has probably built this for you a little while ago as maybe a bit of a favor, or an act of love, and amazing, because that's where we need to do. We all know people who can build websites or do build websites. Some of them are enthusiasts and amateurs. Some of them will charge you for their time. I would encourage you to be deliberate about the actions that they're taking, and also sort of keep an eye on it. So I'm going to just rip this plaster off, Helen, and this is for me, not for you. So Helen's website. I'm going to run through your website. I don't know enough about Helen to make this absolutely realistic, because I would want to know, Helen, about your brand, what is important to you, your purpose, want to know about the audiences you talk to. So I'm using this illustratively, just to run through the foray methodology. So you remember that our first A was to come up with an audience. And in our audience, I've got Annie Ambitious, because all of my audiences alliterate. I don't know why, they just do. So Annie is a teen student, and she likes TikTok, music, and she likes her cat. She's not particularly sociable. She hates stereotyping, just like all teens nowadays. You'll notice that in doing this, I've not necessarily helped you with a persona that you might like, as much as amused myself with some of my little witticisms that have been thrown in. The backstory: Annie's used to getting good marks. Her latest round of mocks have thrown her off a bit, though. She's in year 12 and now feels like time's against her. This is not an uncommon situation, but I need to know about Annie. I want to know what her motivations are. She's not a lazy student. She's actually keen to do well, and this helps me to sort of really imagine what she's like, what she's about. So the script: Annie's bright and capable. Her mum and dad are telling her that she's bright and capable constantly. They're always supportive, but they can't help her with her chemistry. She gets the concepts, she's struggling to get hold of the detail, and she really wants this mark. It's going to get her into her uni. She's not afraid of hard work, and actually probably deep down knows that she needs to be pushed if she's going to excel. Annie could be a prospective customer of Helen's. Helen's nodding, which I'm taking as a really good sign. So this is Annie. This is who we're working to. And we want Annie at the end of her experience with us to go, I knew I could do it. That's actually probably a bit broad. That's maybe her whole interaction with Helen. The success statement at the end of this, I suspect, would be more like, do you know what? Helen's the one for me. I'm booking now. That's success. That's what we want. We don't want her to think, oh, that's interesting, I'll find out a bit more. We want her to commit. So Annie Ambitious. The assessment for Annie is Annie's looking for a tutor. Hurrah, because that's why we're here. But she wants someone who's not going to be intimidating at the same time. She needs to know that they know what they're doing. And so near peer doesn't feel quite right for Annie, because she's used to getting good grades in the past. So she needs someone who's going to help push her. And mum and dad are going to pay. So we're not worried necessarily about the paymenty bit at the moment. Annie is looking for someone that she'll be able to relate to, who's going to push her in the way that she needs to. So Annie's discovery stage is about making sure that Helen is a good fit by looking at her website. So I've been through with Annie Helen's website, and these are some of the things that I came up with thinking about Annie. So the key step discovery is the homepage. The purpose, Annie came to this side because she just wants to get a good sense of whether ChemSci Tutor is a tutor for her. That's the entire purpose of this stage of the visit. So her experience is that actually it didn't really work very well on a mobile phone. Remembering, of course, that Annie's a teen, and if you have a look at your analytics, it doesn't matter if they're teens. The overwhelming majority, or at least significant number of your visitors are going to come through a mobile phone. Make sure that it is optimized. And I've just seen that. Okay, fabulous. So it doesn't win. So that's the first issue that Annie has. At this point, in all reality, Annie may have dropped off. Because if I can't look at it on the device of choice, then it's not for me. You're making me work too hard. We want to keep things simple, remember. There's a question about the professionalism. So things like the URL and the Wix banner. In this particular case, Helen, your website URL hangs off of another website. Jen's Pro Graphic Cart. I can't have it on my head. So it's not chemscitutor.co.uk, which raises questions and why raise questions. Presentation, it can be difficult to read the text over the banner. ChemSci Tutor. The logo file is called potential logo. There are a couple of bits and pieces like this. So the overall feeling at this discovery stage is maybe the website isn't updated a lot. It probably isn't a key part of your customer journey. In all honesty, I would imagine that the vast majority of Helen's customers come from existing customers, word of mouth, and so the website is just there. So some key learnings out of this: some attention to the design, to bring across Helen's professionalism, which is abundantly clear when you read the actual content. And so I move on. From interest, then I would go to the students page, and then these were my ideas as Annie was going through the website. So Annie thought that there was a bit light of detail, and that Helen's qualities don't necessarily come across in her experience. There was no space for a message on the inquiry form. So again, it's that engagement part. So we've been through all of this, taking Annie through the website and the assessment that I needed. I then came up with some arbitrary stuff. Again, this isn't intended to be a blueprint for Helen because I don't know enough about Helen's business. It's to give you an idea of how this process would work. So the first thing is the website hosting. So address some hygiene factors around the website and its performance. Action, secure the domain, and maybe either build a new website on that domain or pay for Wix so you can get rid of that banner. This is fairly important to the persona. It really should be important to us as a business. So I've given that a 10 and an 8 for the persona. Next item would be the branding and the visuals. Implement some new templates and review the content. Important for the persona, important for the booking appointments. And this would be an idea that the user could actually just literally book in their appointments slots with Helen and integrate the app. It feels like the kind of thing that Annie would want. And being a teen, immediate access, it feels like a good completion to an action. But actually, it may not be the most important thing to the persona, 6. And for Helen, probably not so much, because in actual fact, there are a whole load of integration issues as well. So the business rating might be quite low. There'd be something to watch out for the future, but I'm not interested in doing it now. I want some quick fixes. So, these are on my visual review. These are some of the things. So the URL isn't the business name. The banner says Wix. The ChemSci Tutor, I don't know if you can see my mouse here, is where it was difficult to read. The picture of Helen here looks like it's in a social setting. Helen, you look like you're in a pub, which makes you my kind of tutor, I've got to be honest. So I think it's those kinds of things. It's that impression, that visual identity is a reflection of your brand that we're looking to get across. You've got some great content in here and some amazing reasons to believe, but I think the user's having to work a bit too hard to get to it. I've got a personal dislike of FAQs as a section in its own right, because if these are frequently asked questions, it should be content so that people don't have to ask these questions. It's a way of framing that. And you could turn them all into positive messages. So I've come up with a couple of options. And Helen, as an apology for doing this to you and not talking about it, I've actually bought your domain for you. So I will very, very happily transfer ChemSci Tutor to you at any point you want it. So I've done this one, and we'll have a look at it in a second. And I've also then done another one. So a different persona, because Annie may not be right. So Annie Ambitious was the student perspective. Here we've got Henry High Expectations, of course, because Henry has to have high expectations. He likes the finer things in life, and he likes success. He dislikes the fact that his children are taking everything for granted and they aren't excelling. This is my life, sunshine. It's not yours, that kind of thing. Henry is a business, university educated man. He's got an understanding of how things work, and he knows how to get them to work for him. I feel like I'm the setting of a murder mystery. Actually, so Henry doesn't want his child to look back with regret. At the moment, he's got a B in chemistry, and that's going to hold them back. B is amazing, but Henry thinks he should be getting more. It's not about driving his teen into the ground, but he just needs a bit more focus, a bit more dedication. Now, this again might sound like the kind of audience that you've come across. It may sound like the kind of audience you don't want. Henry may not be the customer for you. Henry might be, though, so we need to have a look at how that goes. There's plenty of time for all that ticky-tocking app in the summer between his interning at Pricewaterhouse and the stint at Médecins Sans Frontières. You can have some fun with this because you want to believe in them. I want to believe in Annie. I want to believe in Henry. And also, if you're having fun, you're more likely to do this stuff productively. The visual outcome for Henry, again, depending on the brand that you might have, is going to be slightly different. I mean, this one here it feels much more academic. It feels much more results orientated, much more professional, altogether more serious. It's not about the child at this point necessarily. Meeting potential, more than just grades. All of these kinds of things are gearing us to talk into that audience way. Now, I'm really conscious that I just about hit 12 and got to the end because I wanted to show that. Oh, hang on. Although let me go back onto that. Am I still sharing? Have I stopped sharing? No.
You're still sharing.
I'm still sharing. Let's stop the sharing so that I can look at you. At the 12 o'clock mark, just a little bit, we've run through everything. Given you like a whistle-stop tour, I'm aware of that, of how you can review your own website to make sure that it's working as hard as possible with some practical stuff by thinking about your brand, thinking about your audience, really getting to grips with some of those key design principles in your tone of voice. But also with the foray method, I'm hoping that that's given you a tool that you can actually use to review your own website in a way that doesn't just feel like I'm trying to boil the ocean by solving bits in particular. And we've done that in reference to ChemSci Tutor, looking at how Annie worked through the website and then how Henry might have looked through the website and the different result that you would get from the same outcome. Now, I don't know how many of you have still got time, but what I can do, and I'm really happy to loiter and linger and say around, and literally just run through some of the stuff that I did in Helen's site so that, Helen, you can see the change that I made and why. But also we had...
Julia is normally very strict about finishing.
I was just about to jump in and say that, Dee. Julia has sent me a message and just said that she's unfortunately had to jump onto another meeting. If we finish the live stream, and then if anyone's got any questions for you, Nathan,
perfect.
Perhaps they can stay around and do that.
That sounds amazing, Anna. Let's do that. If we finish the live stream, so we've done the presentation, I'm happy to linger on a non-recorded basis and run through the other ones not as part of the session. Dee, hopefully that keeps me honest enough.
I know the live stream's going to end, but will the recording continue? Because I would like to hear the conversations that continue, but I've got to go because I'm teaching very, very shortly.
Well, actually, Nathan, I am an absolute horror show when it comes to punctuality. I have a rule that we always close on time as well as opening on time, because otherwise people don't dare come back next time. So what we can do, and it's not the first time I've said this, and I had a feeling we would do this with you, Nathan, if you wouldn't mind booking in for another session, because I think you've seen that we really appreciate your input.
Of course, I'd be happy to. So if we do that specifically around looking at the 3 or 4 websites that were put in, so like a follow-up session as opposed to something new. Is that
yes? Fantastic. Okay, so watch this space. Hannah and Nathan will make that happen. I look forward to welcoming you next time, Thursday, tomorrow, 11 a.m. Qualified Tutor Conversations. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, Christopher. Thanks, Matthew. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Dee. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Deborah. Thanks, Daisy. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Anita. Thanks, Eunice. And thanks, Laura. Well done, Nathan. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.